Myths can be debunked. Debunk 10 airplane myths that people still believe. No thanks. Oh, sorry. Flying can be a mysterious experience. Planes are incredibly complicated, even scary machines and pilots. And flight attendants don't tell you too much about what's going on, so it makes sense that people believe all sorts of interesting facts about air travel. The problem is a lot of them aren't true. Number 10. Opening a plane door while in flight is a real safety risk. It isn't. When the plane is cruising altitude it's pressurized. That pressure means that getting the door open would require superhuman strength. To quote Patrick Smith, an airplane pilot blogger, the author of Cockpit Confidential, you cannot open the doors or emergency hatches of an airplane in flight. You can't open them for the simple reason the cabin pressure won't allow it. So don't worry about the occasional passenger going nuts and everyone flying out of the planes as a result of an open door. It isn't going to happen, which leads us to the next myth. Number 9, a small hole in the plane will lead to everything being sucked right out. Patrick Smith notes that while bombs are a large-scale structure, failure can cause disastrous, rapid decompression. A small hole in a plane fusage is a different matter. After a foot-long breach in Alaska Airlines MD-80 plane led to an emergency descent in 2006, Smith wrote in his Salon column, the breach was small one, and the one cabin pressured has escaped. It could be reasonably assumed that the plane was going to stay in one solid piece and fly just fine, which it did. Here's another myth people are going to believe. Number 8. You get drunk faster at cruising altitude. Discover Mythbusters took this one and found it categorically false. But because planes are not pressurized to sea level, it's the equivalent of breathing at 8 million feet up. There's less oxygen in the air, which can make you feel drunk. Number 7 myth. Please dump human waste while in air. Planes dump human waste while in air. Well, doesn't happen. So many people have complained about supposedly being hit by flying waste from above. The FAA created a fact sheet to address this myth. It wrote, it's physically impossible for a pilot to dump a tank while in flight. If you do get hit by waste, it's almost certainly came from a bird. Here's another myth people believe. Number 6. You can get stuck on a plane toilet if you flush while sitting down. You can get stuck, but only if your body forms a perfect seal on the vacuum toilet. This is difficult to do. Adam Savage of busters tried it out, and despite serious suction, got up without a problem. But it's still probably a good idea to stand before flushing. Number 5. Recirculated air in planes spread disease. This one seems logical, but Patrick Smith puts it to bed. The air circulates until eventually it's drawn into the lower fuselage, where about half of it's vented overboard. The remains portion is run through filters. They're remixed with a fresh supply from engines, and cycle begins again. The underfloor filters are described by manufacturers as being of hospital quality. Boeing says that between 94 and 99.9% of airborne microbes are captured. Their total changeover of air 2 or 3 minutes, far more frequency than occur in buildings. Do watch out however, for germs left behind on surfaces like tray tables. Consider bringing some sanitary wipes or hand sanitizers. Number 4. Wearing your seatbelt can hurt your chances of surviving a plane crash. Think is similar to wearing a seatbelt in the car. While it's not crazy to think that your seatbelt can hinder a hasty escape from a crashed plane, it does far more than harm. We spoke with Kevin Hiut, CEO of the nonprofit Flight Safety Foundation, about the crash landing of Asian Flight 214 in San Francisco. He told us in a situation like that you would potentially be thrown out of the seat and could hit another passenger or bulkhead. So it's better to be in your seat and have to deal with unbuckling than to find yourself flying through the air. Number 3. Pilots can control airflow to keep passengers sedated and save on fuel. Again, Patrick Smith has real data. The idea we cut back on oxygen is simply ridiculous. Oxygen levels are determined by pressurization. Number 2. Oxygen masks are decoys meant to keep passengers calm before a crash. The one propagated by character Tyler Durden in Fight Club is way off the mark, according to Smith. If a cabin loses pressure, which can easily happen without leading to a crash, everyone on board is left breathing the air at 30 million feet, which is oxygen poor. The summit of Mt. Everest is 29,029 feet high. Until pilots can bring the plane down about 10 million feet, where the air is safety oxygen rich, those masks keep everyone breathing normally. That's fairly important. Myth number 1. You have no chance of surviving a plane crash. After the crash landing of Asian 214, it seemed incredible that 304 of 307 people on board survived, but that's in line with numbers from National Transportation Safety Board, which shows that 95% of passengers involved in accidents on U.S. carriers between 1983 and 2000 survived an accident is an event in which any person suffers death or serious injury, or in which the aircraft receives substantial damage. That's thanks to strict regulations that make sure modern planes are fire resistant, easy to evacuate, and capable of going through major trauma without falling apart.